Hello and welcome to IT Auditing with SK, your go-to resource for all things IT auditing. Today we'll be doing something a bit more fun where we are looking at some useful prompts that you can use to make your day-to-day activities much better and much easier. And particularly for this video, I'll be focusing on junior IT auditors and using maybe the example of IT general controls just to keep with the theme of this channel. So we'll take a look at some prompts and see how they can help you in your day-to-day execution of your role. Now, as a junior IT auditor, your role focuses on supporting audit tasks like data collection, walkthroughs, and basic testing. So ChatGPT can be a helpful tool in understanding the controls and completing your assignments effectively. So let's take a look at some prompts and how they can be useful. Starting off with maybe you are conducting an IT general controls review and you don't even know what it is. It happens, right? You've been thrown into the deep end. So, ChatGPT, can you explain what IT general controls are and why they're important in audit? And this can seem like a trivial question, but I know a lot of people who just do the work because the work needs to be done, but they don't actually take a moment to understand why they're doing certain things, right? So, why are you even performing IT general controls? Why are you performing whatever IT audit that you are doing? So, here it's giving you a definition of IT general controls, the typical areas that are covered, and why it is important, some key reasons: ensuring data integrity, preventing fraud, security breaches, compliance with regulations. And this really then just sets the tone for your audit. You know exactly what you are doing, why you're doing it, and it will help you even build professional skepticism, right? So that's important. That's one prompt that you can use. So for any concept that you want to understand, be it sampling, be it walkthroughs, whatever it is, you can ask directly on ChatGPT, right? And then let's look at another prompt. Let's say you have been asked to prepare for a walkthrough, right? And you don't know what a walkthrough is, or you've only ever been a participant, but this time it's actually you who's supposed to conduct a walkthrough. So, what questions should I ask during a walkthrough of change management procedures? Great. So, let's see what the response is. And this prompt helps you prepare for client interviews by generating specific, relevant questions around areas such as approvals, change requests, testing, deployments, which is what we're going to see here. Right, so change request and initiation. How are changes initiated? Who can submit a change? What system or tool is used to log and track changes? What information must be included? And so forth. So we have change review and approval. We have change testing and validation. We've got change deployment and implementation, post-implementation review and monitoring, documentation and compliance, security controls, and so forth, which is really good. And you can get this information in a table as well or in any format that you want. So that's how you can then prepare for your walkthrough. Obviously, you customize it based on any understanding that you may have, any preliminary documentation that you have as well. So maybe some of these questions may not be relevant. That's the only key thing that you also need to know, that in as much as you can rely on the help that you get through ChatGPT, for example, you then also need to do a sense check if it actually makes sense. Great. And then the next thing, another prompt. Let's say you are testing access controls, right? So again, another specific question that you might have. ChatGPT, how should I test if user access is properly restricted in a company's Active Directory? Pretty high level. I think we could even customize this further. So let's see what ChatGPT suggests. Great. So review user and group permissions. So check user roles and group memberships. Use Active Directory users and computers or PowerShell to list user roles, group memberships, right? And here's another thing about ChatGPT. It might suggest things which you can or cannot do, right? So if you're performing an audit, there are certain guidelines as to the extent of things that you can do. So before you go and run this PowerShell bit of what do I call it, command, you may then need the appropriate approvals to do so, right? So do think about those things as well, those risks related to actually performing the audit, right? So these are some of the suggestions. So review users and group permissions, and there are also many ways of doing it. So sometimes you don't need to run a PowerShell command. You could probably just navigate your way into the respective group or role that you're looking for. It says validate group policy objects. So this is even going deeper into certain aspects that you can look out for. Check administration and privileged accounts, review service accounts. So really, really helpful stuff. This is even giving you a script, so or commands. So really, really helpful, right? But again, understand your context, understand what you're actually looking for, what you're asking for, and if you can do it in this way that ChatGPT has suggested. And let's play around with this a little bit. Right, let's see the same command. So how should I test if user access is properly restricted in a company's Active Directory for privileged users, right? So we're looking at privileged users now. Identify privileged accounts. And we can see here from the response, it has said that the approach will include the use of PowerShell, so we can obviously customize that as well. Verify memberships and other privileged users. Audit privileged accounts, logins, and last logon. So we'll let it just generate. There we go. And what I'm probably going to do here is also demonstrate that you can remove the PowerShell aspect from this. Right. Give it a moment. But some really, really good suggestions coming through in terms of how to do that. Great. And there's so many things you can do. You can actually ask that it combines all of these PowerShell commands into one file and export it into maybe a document, and it'll make it easier for you maybe if you want to copy paste, right? Or send through some specific requests to your client. So really, really helpful. Right. Final steps. Would you like a custom PowerShell script to automate these checks for your AD environment? And you could say yes, which would be good. But again, the caveat here is that do remember if to check if you can actually run PowerShell scripts or if you have the approval or authorization to do so, especially on a production environment. So I'm going to say remove PowerShell commands from the above prompts response. Great. So here I've just asked that it removes the PowerShell aspect. So here, more straightforward, review all privileged users, domain admins, enterprise admins, and other groups. Identify users with unrestricted privileges, verify memberships, audit privileged accounts, and so forth. So everything that we saw before, just without the PowerShell commands, which is much, much, much more straightforward. Right. Cool. Let's look at another prompt, maybe one last one. So we want to demonstrate maybe creating a checklist, right? So checklists make things much, much, much easy. So generate a checklist for testing backups and recovery procedures in an ITGC audit. Really useful if you have to create your own work paper So this would be really, really useful. And we can play around with that command as well. So this is just a checklist. Verify that a formal backup policy exists. Ensure the policy defines frequency, retention, responsibilities, different things that you need to look out for. Confirm that backups are performed as per policy. Yep. Backup storage and media management, backup testing and verification, recovery time and recovery point objectives, disaster recovery plan, and failover readiness. So really, really good stuff coming through. As a junior IT auditor, I think it's also important that you seek guidance, maybe from your seniors, because you may then not need to test all of these aspects, but you may be focused on specific aspects, maybe just the backup process itself, maybe not including disaster recovery or RTOs and RPOs, but it's good information to know. So that's a checklist. Let's customize that a bit. Generate testing procedures um, for testing backups. Let's remove recovery backups in an ITGC audit. Right, there we go. Some testing procedures there. The objective, the testing steps, and the checklist. So this is much, much more user friendly. And I think one thing that we can probably do, because this is a checklist, we can maybe customize it further. So there are a lot of customizations, but as this is the last prompt, just as we summarize everything, the important thing is number one, ChatGPT is a really good place to find out information, find out different aspects. So, like I said, if you feel a little bit shy to ask maybe your senior, this is one good place to start, or even just to build your knowledge as well. And number two, whilst it's a really good source of information, you will need to sense check some of the information. You will need to see what's actually feasible for you. Like in the example of Active Directory, you will need to check if you are allowed to execute PowerShell commands or if there are certain procedures or protocols that you need to follow. And number three, you can generate all this information into checklists, into tables, and so forth. Right. That should summarize everything. I hope you found these prompts useful, and I'll see you in the next video when we talk about some useful prompts for senior IT auditors. Thanks for watching and see you next time.